Hey guys, I'm Prodigy from Kilo23. Welcome back. Predominantly, I've noticed these days people want to build high rate of fire guns. That does three things. One, it spends a lot of ammo. That's a lot of ammo when you get up to that 30 or 40 round per second range. It's a lot of ammo. It also scares the heck out of you. So I really don't like being on the receiving end of 40 rounds a second. That's really fast. You end up getting hit by 20 BBs. It's not very fun. It's usually pretty painful. And three, it tends to be fairly expensive. Specifically, dual sector gear builds. If you do one of those and you go all the way, they can be very, very expensive. So what people tend to want to do now when they're building a high-speed gun is build a budget-minded one. So I think the best way to do that, personally, is to still do a single-stroke sector, not the dual sector, because that can cause a lot of problems. You end up needing more parts. It's still very expensive to do. If you're doing a single sector, you can get a really nice set of high-speed gears, a speed motor, and a mildly strong spring M100, M110 at the most, probably. You're going to be getting your 330, 350 maybe. You're going to get a pretty good rate of fire, 30, 40 rounds a second, no problem. You're probably going to run a 7.4 large or a 11.1 volt of some kind. Now last time we did some compression upgrades on my Echo 1 MP5. This time we're going to be focusing on the rate of fire. So mainly some of the mechanical components and some of the electrical parts. Today we're going to be installing an SHS 12:1 ratio high-speed gear set. These are pretty strong, fairly inexpensive, and you can get them on AirsoftPeak.com. Free shipping and a really good price as always. We'll start by testing the Echo 1 MP5 on first a 7.4 volt LiPo, then an 11.1 volt, being measured with 0.2 gram rounds. Now with an 11.1 volt, SHS 12:1 gears. Pretty solid, made of pretty good quality steel, and for the money at $25.99, they're hard to go wrong with. Now keep in mind, running high-speed gears, you'll A, either need a pretty torquey motor to pull whatever spring is in there, or B, you're going to want to have a very soft spring. Using these will increase the load on the motor and your electrical system. Now with that in mind, we do have the Echo 1 torque motor already installed. This will pull a pretty heavy spring, so pulling a 380 FPS spring on speed gears, it's not a problem for this motor. As I'm installing the gears, I'll kind of go over the broad idea of shimming. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there is a lot to talk about, and that is good for another video. Keep in mind, your original gears can be used as spare parts in other guns, just in case you need them, so don't go throwing them away, that's bad. Before beginning, it's important to have an abundance of shims around. Just in case you need to make a small adjustment or a large adjustment, have a handful of large ones and small ones on hand. Mixing brands is not a bad thing either. Now the whole idea of shimming is to do two things. One, make sure the teeth have as much contact as possible. If you got large gaps between this gear and that gear and the teeth don't have a lot of contact or as much as they possibly could, you're going to have a weak spot over time and your teeth could break. So you want to make sure you shim these as closely as possible. Your second goal is to have as little axial movement as possible but still have the gears move freely. Now that can be kind of a tedious thing. Shimming is basically a guess and check game. Another must while shimming is making sure your bevel gear is at the correct height. Now there is a little bit of play where you can have it be from one height to another, but it has to engage your pinion gear pretty well. So having it too low is bad. You're going to get really bad scraping noises, decreased rate of fire. It's going to put a lot of wear on the gears. That's bad. But you don't want to have it too high in that it's either scraping against the top of the gearbox or not getting a lot of contact with the pinion. There is a good sweet spot in there you have to find. A good way to check and see if your gears are too tight is to actually install some screws in your gearbox. This can help compress it to where it actually will be when it's closed up and finished. That way you can actually definitively check your gears instead of just holding the gearbox together. When you think you've got it, go ahead and reassemble your gearbox here. Notice I've literally just got the gears and the bushings and the screws and all the shims installed. I don't even have the electrical system, the trigger, or anything else, cylinder obviously. It just makes it a little bit easier to shim this way. You want to tilt your gearbox every which way so you can hear it from different angles. If it all sounds good, you've got minimal axial movement on all these, as little as possible, but they're still spinning pretty freely, then you're fine. Give it a go. Finally, before reassembling your gun, make sure your gears are well shimmed. The teeth and the axles are the two things that really need grease on these. Now we have our 12:1 ratio gears installed. First testing on a 7.4 volt LiPo. It's a jump of just about 3 rounds per second on the 7.4. Let's go ahead and switch over to the 11.1 volt LiPo. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy from Kilo23. Don't forget to go to AirsoftPeak.com and pick up a set of SHS 12:1 high-speed gears that run $25.99 there, and you get free shipping as well. It's a pretty good part. I like them. Very easy to install, and they ship them pretty easily. Thanks for watching, guys. On the next episode, we will be installing an SHS high-speed motor, and I'll talk more about that in the next video. Until then, take care.